course is called Closing 101 entitled Elena Arias of Colonial Guaranty and Title, and I'm also a CDPE. Does anyone know what the CDPE stands for? Certified Distressed Property Expert. The board actually offers it. I believe they offer it once a quarter. If you want to be the expert in short sales, this is a designation you should consider, and I highly, highly suggest it to you. I'm also the president for 2011 for the Women's Council of Realtors of Miami, and I'm very, very honored to be in that position this year, and I take it with a lot of passion. If you, except for that gentleman over there, if you ladies want to know more about your local chapter of the Women's Council of Realtors, Sandy Shepard with Keller Williams is the 2011 president. I believe her website is wcrpalmbeach.com. We are an empowering organization, and we offer a lot of educational training and lunches and breakfasts and fun events. So I welcome you to join your local chapter here in Palm Beach. You can always reach me by email at maria@colonialtitle.us. My business cards are up front, and in my business card is actually my cell phone. So you can actually call me anytime, and unless I'm doing a seminar or meeting with a client, I will call you back within the next 24 hours, because I really feel that I need to develop those personal relationships with you. I'm probably the only CEO of a title company that wants you to call me on my cell phone. All right. Before we begin, I really need to understand where you are all in your real estate career. So I'm just going to ask you, since we are a very small group, just to introduce yourself. Tell me who you are, who you work for, and how many years you've been doing real estate. So I'm going to start with you.
My name is Susan Pfeffer. I just started actually 2 weeks ago.
Hey.
I'm with Realty 3000 in Monica.
Well, congratulations. It's going to be a fun ride for you. Okay.
I'm Cindy Baker. I'm with Roses Realty, and I just got my license back in October, so I'm new stuff for them as well.
Okay. Have you practiced real estate before?
I'm an ex-banker.
Okay, so you're brand spanking new into the real estate business.
Some ways when COVID entered, I started doing real estate back in the 90s and did away from it for a couple years. So just got back in.
Well, welcome. It's a brand new world.
Yeah, it is. Hi, my name is Jackie Kaiser, Coldwell Banker, and I've been in real estate for 8 years.
Good. Okay, we've got newbies and one veteran. Okay, the gentleman over there.
I'm John Phelan. Work for myself. I do mostly appraisal work and property management. I've been licensed longer than any of you guys that are alive. Since 66. But mostly just do appraisal consulting and tax matters.
Okay, so you're in the real estate related industries. Very good.
Annie Hernandez, I'm with Paradise Properties in Florida, and I've been 6 years.
Wonderful. Okay.
Teresita Reollo. I know Maria for quite some time now. I'm with a new franchise that is Real Living. The office is in Boca, Luxury Homes. It's been there forever. It was Century 21 and changed to DMAC, and now it's Real Living. And I can tell you that Colonial is a reliable title company. She didn't pay me to say this. It's true. I can tell you, I still have the same phone number for Maria for years. And you can call her, and she answers. And like she said, she doesn't answer, she's busy, but hello, nobody does that anymore. But she does.
Thank you, Teresita. And you've been in the industry
It's
for?
true. It's true.
You've been in the real estate industry for how long?
I've been since 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Joanne, and I got my license about a year ago. I worked for Alphabet Realty, which is a real estate agency. And I've been practicing maybe for about 6 months.
Okay. Well, welcome. Well, did you come down from Port St.
I
Lucie?
did, yeah.
Oh, long
That's right.
ride.
I'm late, so I apologize.
No. Well, listen, I'm from the Spanish descent. I'm always late. And I'm gonna put you on the spot because we're just introducing ourselves, and I want to get an idea of my audience. So just tell me what your name is, what you work for, and how many, if you just joined the industry, or how many years you have in the industry.
My name is Justin Ford. I'm the broker principal for a company called Tax Profits. And I've been an investor for about 8 years, and we have a portfolio of about 83 units, and we're growing units. And we're also doing a lot more brokerage, a lot in commercial and residential.
Wonderful. Well, welcome to all of you. Okay. And just so that you know, I've been in the real estate related industries for 30 plus years. Right out of high school, I joined a law firm, and they just practice real estate law, and I've never left that field. I became a paralegal. I went to Florida International University in Miami, got my paralegal certificate and degree. Ran a title company in Miami for over 15 years and decided that I was the one that was doing everything, and decided to open up my own company in 1988. And I worked for, my partners were builders, one of the largest builders in Miami, not Lennar, but the next highest, which is HG Land. We developed most of what is now called Kendall in Miami. My partners and I had a really great run, and then I decided that I really just wanted to cater to my favorite real estate professionals, which were realtors. And that's really what has made me stay in this business and has made me endure all the hard times, because I cater to you. You are the one that I dedicate myself to and that I like to teach. So with all that being said, I want you to know that all the seminars that I have put together are a direct relation to my nightmares. Anytime I've had a nightmare in a closing, I write it down and I try to analyze how could this have been prevented. Because if you're being proactive, you can actually prevent a lot of the problems that occur during the real estate transaction that will either make your closing go to the closing table successfully or fall apart before going to the closing table, or worse, at the closing table. So what you are going to see today is a direct correlation to my nightmares, okay, my monsters. And I call them my dragons, okay, because I go out there every day and I slay dragons. I am the dragon slayer. Okay. All right. I like to one day own a sailboat, so you're going to see that my life revolves around sailing, because that's one of my dreams, is to one day own a sailboat and go sailing. So, smooth sailing, smooth closings, are they really possible? Yep, they are really possible if you know how to be proactive and you know how to troubleshoot. Now, for all of you that are just new in the business, you're going to say, well, how the heck do I troubleshoot something I don't know? Well, I'm going to give you a lot of information today, and I'm going to relate it to actual cases that have happened to me, so that when one day something happens to you, you go, oh, I remember that Maria Elena lady, and she had a similar situation, and this is how she resolved it, and if not, let me call her right now. And Teresita made a very valid point, is that cell phone number that I've had is for over 20 years. I've never changed my cell number. And for you all in the real estate business, try to port your phone all the time, because people will call you. I have people calling me from 1980 that I say, oh my God, a ghost from my past. And they're referring me business. So as real estate professionals, try to keep yourself very consistent with your marketing, with your phone number, everything. People will follow you. If they like you, they'll continue to refer business to you. Okay? So thank you for reminding me of that, Teresita. I didn't realize that until, wow, it's been about 20 years. Okay. All right. So let's start. So you have an executed contract, right? Woo! We all love those executed contracts. And I'm not here to talk to you about how to prepare the FARBA as is contract. That's not my job. That's the job of the attorney. And they can, I know you've probably been to a few of their seminars already. My job is, okay, so now you have this executed contract, now what? Well, obviously you have to follow your broker's procedures, your office procedures regarding escrow, et cetera, right? Some of you, your offices or your brokers may accept escrow. some of you, your brokers do not want to accept escrow, and at that point, you need to present that escrow check to either your favorite title company or the lawyer attorney that's going to be doing the closing, usually for the buyer as a selling agent, correct? So, how do you hand over that escrow check? Well, let me tell you what we've experienced in my office that you do not want to do. We have received checks in the mail from John and Mary Smith for $10,000. That's wonderful. They wanted to send me to Nordstrom's, and I can do a lot of damage in Nordstrom's with $10,000. Because it doesn't say the property address. There's no memo on it. There's not even a piece of paper attached to it. The phone number's not on the check. There's no contract. Not even the real estate agent's card is attached to this check. All right, I have a problem, right? And I can't do anything with this check for $10,000. It just sits there on my desk until someone decides to give me a phone call and say, hey, Maria, we haven't received that escrow receipt. I said, does it have to be a check for $10,000? Yeah. Oh, great. We were wondering what transaction this belongs to. This is an actual case that happens to us and a lot of other title companies. Okay? So, when you send your buyer to deposit a check with an attorney or an escrow agent, it is preferred that you ask that title company for their title order request form. When you came in the front door, there was one. If not, there's one right here. Okay? And I'm just giving you that as a sample, as a boilerplate of what they look like. Because here's where it really all starts. Okay? Let me show you what it looks like. Do you have one? Okay. It's this piece of paper. And basically, it's basic information. But you got to understand that basic information for us is world. Because when you receive that check, we don't know what to do with it. Okay, we don't know if we're just holding escrow. Hopefully we're not just holding escrow. Hopefully we're actually doing the whole transaction. Okay? So we need to know if we're going to order title out of that. We need to know the specifics. Right? If you look at this, it says purchase contract is attached. Now wouldn't that be great? A purchase contract that is fully executed. All right. I'm going to take a little moment now to explain to you the difference between just a copy of an unsigned purchase contract and the executed purchase contract. The unsigned one has no validity for us. We are under no escrow diligence to do anything with this contract. However, if you present us one with an executed by everybody, now we have due diligence to everybody as an escrow agent. One thing about the contracts is you sometimes get addendum and you fail to send the addendums to the title company. So now we go to the closing table 3 weeks later and you tell us, oh, you forgot about that credit. What credit? Well, the credit that's on the addendum. We look at our file, there's no addendum. So you've got to make sure that when you're doing your work with the title company, you are keeping the title company or the lawyer in the loop of everything that is occurring. One of the biggest fallouts in a real estate transaction is lack of communication. Lack of communication with all the team players. Okay, and by the team players, I mean the 2 real estate agents, the title company, the buyer, the seller, the lender, the mortgage broker, who's a mortgage broker, and of course, the buyers or sellers, and everyone that's involved. So everyone needs to be on the same page, okay? So communication is key, and that is one of the biggest downfalls all the time. And you might say to me, well, Maria, I try to call my title company, but they're just not answering their phone. I understand that. But guess what? You're not always available either. Could that be that they're possibly on the phone with another client? Okay. You've heard of emails, right? Email, right now, is the best form of communication with your title company or with your lawyer. Plus, we love it in our office because whatever you write to us, you can't come back and say, oh no, I never said that. Oh yes, you did. Here it is. And by the way, it works vice versa. Because if we tell you something, it's in writing. So you can also come back and say, well, Maria, you said such and such and such and such. So my best form of communication right now that I prefer is via emails. Obviously, there are phone conversations that we must have in a real estate transaction, but try to put everything in writing. I am a stickler for everything being in writing. And most of us, I don't know about you, but I walk around like this with my head in my phone. That's a terrible habit, by the way. Okay? But when you're in business, in this type of environment, people are expecting us as title agents to respond immediately. And your clients are almost expecting you to respond immediately. Only because they've seen you, probably, when you're with them, on your phone, checking your emails. So guess what happens? If you don't respond to them immediately, they're going to feel a little slighted, aren't they? So be careful when you're in front of your clients. This is a hint. Be careful when you're in front of your clients not to be doing that. Because you're sending them a message that you're going to have to live with. Because now they're going to want you to respond to them immediately also. Okay? So let's be careful with that. But in this environment right now, everybody answers with emails. It's just the way we're living, okay? Let's get down to the real nitty-gritty, and this is my favorite part, okay? And I call it, let's get it right from the start. I want a fully executed copy of the contract with all addendums. Okay. I know that right now a lot of you scan the contracts or have form simplicity or all that, right? But a few months ago, a lot of you would fax contracts back and forth, and by the time we would get the contract, it looked tiny. Because we couldn't even read the writing on the contract, let alone the folio number or the correct property address. So I like to do the three-way check, okay? Which is property address, tax folio number, and legal description. Because when we get the title order, we immediately, in our office, what we do is we immediately pull tax records before we order title. Because the last thing I want to do is order title on the property next door. Because the 5 was like an 8. Has that ever happened to you? Where you're looking at and you're saying, is that 458 or is that 453? You can't tell because it's blurred on the fax. So make sure that you have a three-way check for everybody. Tax folio number, legal description, and the property address. Because then we know we're ordering title on the right property. Or we're ordering a survey on the right property. And we've had that where the survey was ordered and it's the guy next door. And that can hold up the closing only because it looked like a 3 and it was really an 8. Okay? So do the three-way check. The seller and the buyer information. Okay. I know that as listing agents, you have pretty much a good control of the information on your sellers. And as buyer's agents, you hopefully have pretty good control of your buyer's information. Okay? So I'm going to work on the seller first, because the seller information is probably key in trying to get us all the information that we need from the get-go. Their names are very important. I have had situations where the seller in the tax roll said John and Mary Smith. Okay? And they changed their last names. So I'm like, how did this happen? This is true. They changed their last names to something else. So if the tax roll shows something you write the contract differently, we have a problem. When you write contract, seller's name, I mean, don't you pull tax rolls as a selling agent? Aren't you pulling the tax rolls anyway? You should. You should pull the tax rolls because you want to see who's on title. Okay? So pull tax rolls when you're going to fill out your contract so that at least we know we're playing with the right parties. The buyer's information. Today, it is very, very important that the names of the buyers that you're putting on the contract are the people that are going to take title. With an REO, it's not assignable. So if you put John and Mary Smith as the buyer, John and Mary Smith better be coming to the closing, and that's the way they're taking title. In a short sale, if it's John and Mary Smith that's buying the property, it best be John and Mary Smith that's buying the property. They can't be buying under a corporation and changing it half stream. Because if you change the name on the vesting, how they're taking title, guess what we have to do? Because we're processing the short sales. The loss mitigator will say, well, you can't close under the corporate name because that's not who was on title. That's not who was on the contract. The contract's to John and Mary Smith. So John and Mary Smith must close. It's not the corporation. And if John and Mary Smith don't want to close under their names, they now want to close under their corporate name on their LLC, guess what's going to happen? We need to draw up a brand new contract, and we have to start from square one with the loss mitigators again. We have to resubmit the entire package to the loss mitigator. Believe you me, you and I are not going to be happy with that because now that delays our closing. We have to start all over again with the processing of the short sale. So be careful with your buyers and how you're putting your name on there. The Social Security number for the seller is extremely important for a title agent. Why? Because we actually do a task during our process that's called a 1099 form. We must file a 1099. We must give it to them. And we have to send that information to the IRS at the end of each year, reporting that there's been a sale. So we must have their complete Social Security number. I've had real estate agents that say they don't want to give it to me, or they don't want to give it to you. Well, it's part of our job, and we must have it. It's another reason, not just the 1099, but when we order payoffs, we have to have their Social Security number. The bank won't talk to us unless we have their Social Security number. There's another reason. If during our title examination we find that there's a federal tax lien against John Smith, do you know how many John Smiths there are in this world? Okay. But there's only one John Smith with his Social Security number. So we will be able to ascertain whether or not that $100,000 federal tax lien is against our seller or not without even coming to bother you, as long as we have the Social Security number up front. Okay? So we must get that information. Marital status. This is my pet peeve, so I'm going to take a few minutes to explain how come the marital status is extremely important to us as title agents. Let's say on the tax rolls, we're going to go back to John and Mary Smith. And that's all it says. The owners of the property are John and Mary Smith. It doesn't say his wife. It doesn't say single people. Just John and Mary Smith. Well, let's say you have this contract, they're your sellers, and we pull title, and John and Mary Smith, his wife, it's his wife. Mary Smith is his wife. A judgment has come up against John Smith for $50,000. Ford Motor Credit. He didn't pay his escrow. And Ford Motor Credit put a judgment against John Smith. When we do our title exam, we know that they're married. We don't even have to worry about this judgment because a corrective instrument called a continuous marriage affidavit will take care of this judgment. We won't even have to worry with you. But let's say that John and Mary Smith are not married. They're single people. It's that John is Mary's brother. Now this judgment applies. Remember when you went to real estate school, there were a few ways of taking title. One was joint tenants, tenanting the entirety. That's the wife, the husband and wife, tenant by the entirety. And the other one was tenants in common. It makes a huge world of difference in Florida how the vesting takes place. So let's take this John and Mary, the brothers and sisters. Well, now the judgment on Ford Motor Credit will encumber the property. And what this will mean is we will have to pay off that judgment as part of the closing. Probably something you as a listing agent weren't expecting, were you? And probably something he didn't expect he ever had to worry about either. So there are a few ways to clear it. And if John is his primary residence, and he can prove residency, and he can prove that it is his homestead, and since it is under $50,000, we can probably take care of that judgment with an affidavit of homestead and not have to worry about it. However, if the judgment were over $50,000, then we would have to go through a separate procedure that takes about 45 to 60 days to file in court. Okay? And we can still clear it that way as long as the judgment holder doesn't come back and make a claim on it. So it makes a world of difference on how title is held. Now let's take it a step further. Let's say that John and Mary are married and they have minor children. Something happens to Mary. She dies. The property automatically goes to John because it's tenants by the entirety. You can't separate them. Okay? But let's say it's John and Mary, single and single. And they're brothers and sisters. John has a 15-year-old son, and Mary has an 18-year-old daughter. Mary dies. They're tenants in common. Things should know. Okay, things should know. Because Mary's daughter is now the legal heir. She is the heir. If there's a last will and testament there, she is the heir. So now Mary's daughter, who's 18 years old, is entitled with John. And let's say Mary was 15 years old. That could create a huge problem for us now, because not only are now we having to take it to probate, it has to be probated. Mary's estate is going to have to be probated if we're going to sell this property. But now she has a minor child. And if she does not, if the minor child does not have a father, it may need to go to guardianship. So it gets complicated. So our closing that should have happened in 2 weeks, because it's a cash deal, don't you love those? Cash deal, 2-week closing? Our 2-week closing is now going to be 3-month closing. And your buyer's pissed. Okay? But those are the things that could happen, and those are the things that if you alert us, we can take action immediately when we open up the transaction. Here's another thing that could happen, because public records don't tell us that Mary died. Yes, the death certificate does get filed. Can you imagine how many Mary Jones there are? It's very difficult to ascertain it's our Mary Jones. But if you, the listing agent, tells us, by the way, Mary is deceased, we can now proactively say, well, has her estate been probated? We need to get a hold of the probate attorney. We need to see who's the personal representative. There's a lot of stuff going on. But if the procedure has not started, we can't wait until the closing table to figure it out. Because when we prepare our documents, we're preparing them, John, a single man, and Mary, a single woman, and we're expecting Mary to somehow appear out of the grave. We don't know she's dead. okay? So we will need to know that. And what's sad is, and this is a really sad situation, is when you have a recent widow, okay, and you don't inform us that Mary died, and they've been married for 50 years, and then, as title agents, we ask, well, Mr. Smith, Mr. Smith, you're here, but where's Mary? Oh, I just lost her to cancer 6 months ago. It's a very sad situation. Okay, so we don't want to get involved in that problem. And if it does happen that it's John and Mary deceases, and it's his wife, it's a simple procedure for us. Okay, we have to do an arm's length affidavit. We have to do a continuous marriage affidavit, and we have to make sure that there are no state taxes that are due. And it's an easier procedure to do it that way, but when it's tenants in common, it becomes very, very, very complicated. Let me take it a step further. Divorce. Those are ugly closings. What we like to do in our office is please forewarn us that there's a divorce, because the spouses usually don't get along, because when there's money, there's trouble. Okay? So what we like to do, we know that there is a situation and they have to sign the documents, we like to usually put them in separate rooms. Separate rooms, or have them come in at separate times during the day to sign their documents. But if they insist at being in the closing, we like to usually put them in separate rooms because it can get ugly. This is it's from one of my nightmares, okay? Separate rooms. If your buyer and seller are bickering and there's animosity, you might want to give the title company a heads up and say, you know what, it might be a good idea to have them in separate closing rooms. Because you want the transaction to go, the closing to go smoothly. You don't want bickering. And believe me, I've seen a lot of it. I've even seen attorneys almost kill each other across the closing table. So, if you know something's going on, let us know, and we're going to be happy to make it a smooth closing for you. Okay. I think I took care of the marital status for you. You understand how important the marital status is for us to know this? Okay. Because if we take care of a lot of problems for us, we're going to be very proactive. Obviously, the forwarding address for the seller would be good if you have it. The vesting of the buyer, how they're taking title, make sure you get it right from the start. If it's a foreign national buyer, and I'm going to take a little bit of time about foreign nationals because it's really big down here in South Florida. If it's a foreign national buyer and they are buying an investment property, it's best that you have them speak to an attorney right away before they even sign a contract. Because as a foreign national, they should really be taking title under an LLC. In fact, most investment properties should be under LLCs for CYA, covering your assets. So if you have a foreign national buyer, immediately send them to your favorite attorney that can handle this. They're probably going to need to get a TIN number, because they're going to need that, or I think it's a TIN number, to see if they can handle that for them, or their attorney. But it makes a world of difference for them when they go to sell a property. Okay. I'm going to talk to you about if your seller is a foreign national, because this is huge. And a lot of realtors look at me now like a deer in the headlights when they tell me this. Let's say that your seller is a foreign national. And how do we know he's a foreign national? Well, when you're taking a listing, there's 2 questions you need to ask. And this is at the listing stage. Are you a U.S. citizen? Yes or no? No. Do you have a green card? Yes or no? No. You are deemed a foreign national. For tax purposes, we as real estate professionals have to abide by FERPTA, You've heard of it? FIRPTA? Okay, get very accustomed to it. FIRPTA. It has to do with the taxation law of a foreign national seller. If the board offers a seminar on foreign nationals, please take it. Please come and listen, because the implications to you as a real estate agent are huge. Let me give you an idea. The law states that if my seller is a foreign national and my real estate transaction is for less than $300,000, there is a special waiver, an exception, that we wouldn't have to worry about holding back anything. And that would be if the buyer is willing to sign a certificate that says that they will be living on the property, or their family member will be living on the property for 50% of the time in the first year of their purchase. If the buyer is willing to sign that certificate, we don't have to worry about it. If the buyer is not going to sign that certificate because they can't, because it would be lying, or it's an investment property, then we as title agents and you as real estate professionals, we need to hold back on our closing statement, on our HUD-1, 10% of the purchase price from the seller. Now let's do the math. $300,000, 10% is $30,000 that your seller expected to walk away with and go to the next closing with, right? No, not happening. Your seller's going to be very, very irate with you if you didn't tell him about this. And guess what? This deal might fall apart, and the purchase that you're getting a commission on the next one will fall apart too. So, how do we become proactive? Ask those two questions at the listing table. Are you a U.S. citizen? Yes or no? No. Do you have a green card? Yes or no? No. You are a foreign national. So what do we do then? You have to let them know that at the time of closing, the lawyer or the title company will be holding back 10% of the purchase price until we get a certificate from the IRS saying what the tax ramifications are. So, if you do
maybe we can handle this. Continue. Teresita, never mind. Okay.
All right. So, what happens is your seller, once we have an executed contract, your seller has to go to your CPA and fill out what is called an application for the certificate of withholding from the IRS. This is something that, as far as I know, your seller cannot do on his own. Why? Because it's very complex. And it's not just properties that he holds in the United States or assets that they hold in the United States. It's on their world assets, their global assets. Okay? So this is big. So now, you advise your seller, go to your CPA, here's the contract, have him file for the certificate. This is going to take about 60 to 90 days to get back. This will not hold back your closing. As long as your seller has already made application and their CPA has communicated to us or given us proof that the application has been made, we can proceed to close. As long as we hold back 10% of the purchase price on the HUD-1. What happens after closing? Well, we hold this money in escrow until such time as the IRS sends the CPA the certificate saying $10,000 or nothing is due. At that point, the CPA gives it to us, and we release the funds according to the instructions. Send so much to the IRS, send so much to the seller. Fast forward to today's real estate nightmare called short sales. Guess what? It still applies. And here's where my realtors go, oh, no, can't be. The seller's not getting anything. I know, but the laws haven't changed. We still have to comply with FERPA. And that's where a lot of realtors are really getting themselves into a lot of hot water by not telling their title company the seller is a foreign national. Let me tell you what can happen if we don't do our due diligence in this respect. Guess who's going to have to pay for the taxes? If there is any taxes due from the seller on the sale of the property of the foreign national, the buyer, of all people, the transferee, the buyer will receive a letter from the IRS saying, you owe $30,000. Guess what's going to happen then? You and I are going to get sued big time because we are the real estate professionals. We have the E&O policies. Okay? So you can't think that you don't have to worry about this. This is huge, especially down here in South Florida. If I do this seminar in Michigan, it makes there's hardly very few foreign nationals, unless they're Canadians. But down here in South Florida, this is huge for us. So remember the foreign national. Two questions only. Are you a U.S. citizen? Yes or no? Do you have a green card? Yes or no? No? You're a foreign national. Please don't ask them if they have a social security number. And some people say, oh, if you have a social security number, you're not a foreign national. Not necessarily. They have a working permit. They have a working visa. They have a social security number. And a lot of South Americans, as I've learned, only because I'm of Latin descent, you ask them, are you a resident? Yeah, I reside here. You're not a legal resident. Okay? Because you don't have a green card. I think now they're even blue. But they know what a green card is. It's the residency card. Okay? So be very careful on the foreign national part. Is it probate? We already went through this. We need to know if the seller, if one of the sellers has deceased, we need to know. As listing agents, you're pulling tax rolls when you're getting the listing anyway. So if Mary's not there to sign the listing, hello, where is she? And that's where you can be proactive and say, well, John, who's the brother, has Mary's estate been probated? Well, no. I mean, it's just this little $100,000 house. Guess what? This little $100,000 house that still needs her estate needs to be probated. Isn't it?
What happens if they lie and say, yes, I am a legal resident?
Well, we're going to catch them. Because as title companies, we have a form that they sign at closing. It's an affidavit that says, are you a U.S. citizen? No. So they're going to have to sign for us. But you don't want to find out at the closing table. And we don't want to find out these things when we're there to ching-ching, checks. That's not when we want to find this out. That's like going to make a very, very big thing about this foreign national, because you know at the listing. Right? As a buying agent, as a selling agent, how do you know? Okay. Just like in short sales, anybody here done a short sale as a selling agent? You have no control. Zero. And that's exactly, what you're going to have when you're a selling agent. You have very limited information. However, if there's sometimes as a realtor you have red flags. We fix them.
Or it's black on the screen that's on theirs at home.
If you have a red flag that's telling you, something's going on there, maybe I should call the title company. And say, you know what? I haven't seen Mary. I don't know, I've never seen Mary, and Mary didn't sign the contract. Could you find out where Mary is? Okay? Because you sometimes get that intuition, so let us know. It's all about teamwork. It's all about communication for us and with you. I'll think of some nightmares as I go along, believe me. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about a marital situation. If you have a situation where it's and so it's tenants in its entirety, the title is, they've gotten divorced, and that hasn't changed. They haven't redone any title work, but there's divorce papers that says, okay, the property is in control of the wife. You still have to get both parties to sign off on the contracts and the closing documents?
Yeah, the question is, if it's title by the entireties and there's been divorce and title has not transferred, do we have to do anything? Yes, we do. Usually, if it's when they're divorced, hopefully, and I do say hopefully, and I keep my fingers crossed, the divorce attorney has filed a quitclaim deed. They've done the quitclaim deed, giving the spouse that is going to stay with the house the property. However, as we have found out, this doesn't always happen, and the divorce attorney, not being a real estate attorney, doesn't file the quitclaim deed. There is certain language on the property settlement agreement that, if worded correctly, almost has an automatic transfer. But that property settlement agreement must also be filed. And some attorneys, that are divorce attorneys, don't file the property settlement agreement. So, because they're not real estate attorneys. So, in a divorce, you will want to find out if the quitclaim deed has been, in fact, signed over to the spouse that is now entitled or who's keeping the property. Sometimes it doesn't get transferred. Sometimes the property settlement agreement says at time of sale, the property, the proceeds will be divided 50-50 or 40-60. If that's the case, where the two spouses are still on title, then we will need a copy of the property settlement agreement, because we will need to review how the proceeds must be distributed. I will caution you this, if you have, and this is a red flag for you, and this happened to us. Okay. It was an outside seller, a foreign seller, so we have double whammies here. Okay. And apparently they had gotten divorced in their native land. And of course, being divorced in their native land, it's not filed here, so we don't know. We had the closing occurring, and the husband shows up with a very beautiful woman to the closing table. And, he's expecting to walk away with 100% proceeds. The lady that showed up, when we asked her for her ID, well, why do I have to give you that? Well, because you're still entitled, Miss Solaris. Okay. Well, I'll sign. Well, it's got to be notarized, so we need to see your ID. Do you have Florida driver's license? Do you have passport? And what do you have? Because we just can't notarize something without your ID. He had brought her to sign. And this was his girlfriend or whoever, I don't know. But, that probably could have been a red flag on part of the listing agent that should have said, there's something funky going on. Okay? Because Mrs. Solaris needs to sign this document. And she's in Venezuela and knows nothing about the transfer of this property. That's huge. I believe that's called fraud. But it does happen. So, like I said, if you feel something, if you have a red flag, you might want to say, let me talk to the title company about this. Because we have tactical ways of contacting the other party and just, I call it insert finger in the mouth and grow up. Okay. We have ways to make them talk. We know how to ask the right questions. All right. But that takes care of your question on divorce, right? All right. And like I said, try if it's not amicable, have them in separate rooms. You don't want war. The war of the roses occurring there. And by the way, let me take that a step further. Nowadays, do we have equity? What are we fighting about? We're fighting about negative equity. Whose liability is it anyway? So, it gets a little complicated now with short sales, there's divorces, everything is just reversed. And we're going to talk a little bit more about short sales and all the things we need to do, but it just adds that little level of frustration that was not there 5 years ago. Okay, mail-aways. Oh, by the way, we do want to know, believe it or not, we want to know what your commission is. On some of your contracts, your commissions are not stated. We do not have a crystal ball. We do not know if it's 6%, 7%, or God willing, 10%. I mean, look, yeah, but we need to know what your commission is. So when we prepare our HUD-1, we prepare it correctly, because on your contract it doesn't say nothing as to what your commission is or what the split is. So please let us know. Okay? That would be a good email. Transaction fees, I'm not even going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole. Okay? Because I believe that right now there is a controversy on whether or not you can put transaction fees on your HUD-1s, or if you can even charge transaction fees. I know down in Miami a lot of brokers have become very astute, and they're calling it scanning fees, warehousing fees. I'm like, come on, dude, $395 for a warehousing fee? You don't think someone's going to raise a red flag on that one? But there is controversy now. Go back to your brokers, ask them about this transaction fee, because I understand that now a lot of stuff is going on with that. Okay? If there are attorneys involved, we need to know. Why? Because attorneys will ask us for a lot of paperwork that will hold up your closing. And they usually come in at the very last moment. And they're going to demand paperwork. They're going to demand copies of the exceptions on the title commitment. They're going to demand a bunch of stuff. And I love attorneys. I love attorneys. I'm a partner of an attorney. But I know that they come in at the last moment like stealth bombers. And they're going to ask for a lot of stuff, and they're going to hold back your closings. Okay? So if there's attorneys involved, we need to know. Mail away, one of my pet peeves. If you know somewhere along the line that the seller or the buyers will not be attending the closing, let us know ahead of time. Because if they happen to be in a foreign country where they must go to the embassy to have the papers notarized, some of these embassies you need an appointment, and it could be as far as 30 to 45 days out. So if we're trying to do a closing that's closing in 2 weeks, this is not going to happen. Okay? So we need to know from the get-go, or the minute you hear that one of the parties will not be at the closing table, that we're going to be doing a mail-away. All right. How do we handle mail-aways? Well, now with the age of technology, it's very simple. We just email and scan the documents and send it to the parties, wherever they need to sign it. Unless they happen to live in a remote farmland, out in Utah or Iowa, where they have to travel to get documents notarized, or they don't have a printer. Believe it or not, they just don't have printers nowadays. This could be a problem. It's quicker now, but I got to warn you, we need to know about this. Okay, power of attorneys. And this is a big one too, because there's 2 types of power of attorney. There's a general power of attorney, and then there's a durable power of attorney. And a lot of sellers or buyers are saying, oh yeah, but my brother has power of attorney. He'll sign everything. Yes and no. For purposes of signing a real estate contract, a general power of attorney would be sufficient, as long as it's drawn up correctly. and it has to be witnessed and notarized. A durable power of attorney is used when the seller will not be signing the documents at closing, and he's assigned someone power of attorney. And it could be a buyer too. But the durable power of attorney is very, very specific. It has to be specific to the transaction. It can't be in general format. Meaning, it has to say that John and Mary Smith are selling the property to Teresa and Rolando Rivera. Property address, blah, 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 blah. Legal description, blah, 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 blah. For $300,000. And it has to be witnessed and notarized just like the warranty deed has to. Now, my thought is, and I don't second guess these durable power of attorneys. I always send them to my underwriter for approval. I don't like to second guess anything that needs a power of attorney. My thought process is, well, if we're going to get the durable power of attorney signed now, why don't I just go ahead and get the paperwork that I need signed by the seller now? Right? That makes sense to me. There are occasions when the durable power of attorney has been signed ahead of time. Okay, perfect. But we need to review it to make sure it has all the powers vested in it correctly and it's witnessed and notarized correctly. The general power of attorney, that's usually for the realtor to sign the HUD-1 on behalf of the seller if it's a mail away, or so-and-so to sign the contract on behalf of the seller. It also happens on the buyer's side. Let's say it's my buyer who happens to live in Venezuela, and they're not going to come to the closing. And the note needs to be signed. Well, guess what? Now we have a double whammy because we might be able to accept it. But how about the lender? The lender may not be willing to accept a durable power of attorney. They may want the document signed by the borrower. So we have to be very, very careful also with that. Okay? Understood? General and durable and the differences? Inspections, repairs, please keep us in the loop. If there is something that we need to collect on the closing statement, let us know about it, but we also need an invoice. I've had people call me or realtors call me and say, hey Maria, I need for you to collect $450 for Chicho Pandagloria because he went and fixed the glasses, the windows. Well, who the heck is Chicho Pandagloria? Okay? And where's his invoice? Because we need an invoice. We can't just be paying people. We need their invoice. So please make sure that we get an invoice on that. All right. Here's what happens. We're just talking about generalities. Now we're going to get really into the nitty-gritty. When the contract comes in and your title order request form comes in, we now proceed to do our title exam. We order title. In our office, we order title immediately. Title usually takes about 5 to 6 days, working days, for us to pull public records, to massage all those documents, and to put it in a format called the title commitment. That is it's the commitment from the title company that if all of these matters are taken care of, then we can proceed to do the closing, and we can proceed to give the buyer their owner's title insurance policy. So the title commitment is a prelude to the owner's title insurance policy. And what does the title commitment say? Well, the title commitment is going to tell us all the open mortgages that exist on the property, any judgments of record, liens, unpaid taxes, any corrective documents we may need to obtain. If the property is in bankruptcy, it's going to reveal things that the seller doesn't want us to know about, okay? We're going to find out just about everything that is a public record that may affect the property. Let me take a few minutes to talk about open mortgages. When you, as a listing agent, are taking the listing, there's another thing you've got to remember. Ask them to please produce their owner's title insurance policy. Because this might save us a lot of trouble and a lot of time. I'll give you a case in point. Let's say we did a closing 5 years ago. And we paid off a mortgage. We paid off a city mortgage for John Smith, who was the seller at that moment. His mortgage was for $500,000. We paid it off, sent the money to the bank. The bank sent the release or the satisfaction of mortgage to the seller, to Mr. John Smith, because they didn't send it to us. And Mr. John Smith has now moved out of the house. It was forwarded to his new home address in Kentucky. And he sees that and goes, oh, great. The mortgage has been paid off. And he takes this piece of paper and files it in his file. And he puts that file in storage and forgets that file even exists, right? Well, our buyers were Teresa and Rolando Rivera. And now Teresa and Rolando Rivera, 5 years forward, are selling the property to me. And in my title exam, in my title commitment, something happens. Well, when Teresa and Rolando bought the house, they got 2 mortgages, you know, those piggyback mortgages that we're all in trouble with right now. They got a first, the Bank of America, for $700, and then they got a second for $50,000. So when I do the title commitment, my title exam comes up, there's 3 mortgages. There's 3 open mortgages on title. And one of them, 2 of them are Teresa's and Rolando's when they purchased the property, but the third one was a $500,000 mortgage from City Mortgage from John Smith. And Teresa's freaking out. She's saying, oh my God, how is that happening? Because now the title company's calling her and hey Teresa, you got a third mortgage on the property? No. $500,000? No. That was taken care of when we did the closing. Oh, okay, well, something happened along the way that satisfaction mortgage did not get recorded in the public records. And that's the problem. But the mortgage never got recorded. It's open. If you, as a listing agent, had done your due diligence when you were taking the listing and obtained the owner's title policy from the seller, guess what? This problem will go away. Just like that. As long as you review the owner's title policy and that mortgage for $500,000 was not made an exception to, meaning they didn't assume it, then pretty much this open mortgage situation has gone away and we can proceed to closing. Great stuff, right? Okay, so please, listing agent, get that. Because if we don't have that owner's title insurance policy, it could get complicated and it can hold back your closing. Yes, ma'am.
In the same situation, I have a client who's interested in a specific house, and we went to see it. When we got there, he liked the place, but he was a little bit reluctant with the owners, and he asked me if I can find out some information as far as the house is concerned. And I went into the public records and pulled up their names and stuff, and I looked, and the property is listed as not a short sale, it's just as selling by the owner. But when I look up the record, it says they've been taking mortgages from 1970, and the last mortgage was taken in 2007 for $376,000. And I tried to contact the listing agent. It doesn't give me a call, but I just told the buyer, listen, I think there may be something there because it's not listed on the short sale. From 2007, I'm not sure if the mortgage will be paid already. Yeah. 376.
Yeah, public records is a wonderful thing. And if you ever want to, just Google public records, Google your name. It might scare you. Okay. But yeah, you can, this is what we actually go, but our records are more advanced. But, yeah, you can follow what the seller's been doing, how many mortgages that they've taken out. The problem here might be, for example, the title policy will only take care of, the owner's policy will only take care of anything that was previous to Teresita owning the property. But anything that Teresita did from the moment she took title forward, the title policy is not going to help her to clear title now. So, and this has happened quite a bit, where people refinance their homes several times. And now, if any of those properties are showing up as open mortgages, it gets complicated. Because now we have to go back to those lenders and obtain the satisfaction of the mortgage. Or Teresita needs to produce for us the HUD-1s, the closing statements that were signed at the time of her refinance, showing that those loans were paid off. And as diligent title agents that we are, we're going to try to contact those title companies and say, could you please give us a copy of the cashier's check or proof that it was paid off? Okay. But yeah, the open mortgages are a big problem. And going to the, God bless you, going to credit reporting bureaus, that doesn't do anything for us. We have to feel satisfied that that mortgage is paid off, because it becomes a claim on us if we skip over it. By the way, now that we're at that point, I want to make sure that you all understand who a title company represents. We do not represent the buyer. We do not represent the seller. We do not represent the listing agent, and we do not represent the selling agent. We represent our underwriters. Our due diligence and our fiduciary duty goes to our underwriters when we write under it. And our job is to have 0 claims come back behind us. Because if a claim comes in, then our underwriters have to pay for it. Okay, so that's who we represent. So a lot of people say, oh no, but you represent us. No, we don't represent. You're our clients. You're our customers. Okay. Judgments of record. The title commitment will say, hey, John Smith has that judgment from Ford Motor Credit. Okay, so now we have to ask John Smith, hey John, is that you? Were you ever residing on this at this property address? Is that you? Oh yeah. Okay, well, guess what? We have to pay off this judgment because it's a tenant in common situation, remember? Unpaid taxes, corrected documents. Corrected documents could be a big problem. Okay. Let me take just a few minutes to tell you about how that could be a corrected problem, could delay your closing. And that's why actually at our title company, the minute we get your title order, we order title right away. We don't want to wait till the loan is approved or the short sale is approved. That's not the time to be ordering title. You order it immediately. Because let's say that Teresa and Rolando do a quit claim deed. By the way, it's quit, Q-U-I-T, and not quick, Q-U-I-C-K. Quit claim deed. And yes, you can buy them at Office Depot. And I don't suggest anyone do that. Okay? Because that's exactly what Teresita and Rolando did. They decided that they wanted to quit claim, get out of the title, and give it to Susie. And give it to Susie. Because they were getting a judgment coming, a judgment was coming on. So they wanted to prevent the judgment from attaching, so they give it to Susie. Here's the problem. They went to Office Depot, and they filled in the blanks. And they put Teresita and Rolando Rivera to Susie Coffee. The property, 458 East 35th Street, Boca Raton, Florida. And Teresita signs it, and Rolando signs it, and somebody notarizes it. You who? You went to the courthouse and you reported it. All right. Fast forward. Susie, you want to sell the property. Because now it's your property. Right? They left. They're gone. Now we are going to sell your property. And you think you have title. It's recorded, everything was done. Well, the deed that Teresita went to Office Depot and filled in was done incorrectly. Several reasons. There's no marital status. And you have to put what the grantor's marital status is. Was Teresita and Rolando married? Was it his wife? Her husband? Did they get divorced? Were they single? Don't know. Can't assume. Problem number one. Problem number two, there's no legal description. We need a legal description. Problem number three, it was not witnessed by two witnesses. So that deed is actually invalid. Now you go find Teresita so we can go do the closing. It gets complicated. And by the way, you don't know where they're at. So what do we do then? We have to do a suit to quiet the title because there's no way we can find them. It gets a little hairy now. So be careful with these people that go do quitclaim deeds at Office Depot. And I'm going to give you a little more insight on a quitclaim deed. Quitclaim deed says if, and I emphasize if, I have any interest in this property, I'm giving it to you, Susan. But be quite honest, I don't really know if I do have any interest in it, but I'm going to give it to you. That is probably the worst form of transfer of property. It usually occurs only in divorces, probate proceedings, or if I want to transfer it, I own property as a single woman, and now I want to transfer it to me and my new spouse. Those are generally what it's used for, or interfamily transfers. But never to transfer ownership, okay, to a subsequent purchaser. That's the worst form of transfer. So I don't accept anything. Plus, if a quitclaim deed has been done within the last 6 months, it sends out a red flag to us because it may be fraud. Okay, so we don't like quitclaim deeds in any way, shape, or form. Okay? Also, be careful if you are quitclaiming something to a family member because you want to avoid the judgment that's coming. You transfer it over to Susie. But Teresita and Rolando are going to continue living on the property. But what Teresita and Rolando don't know, Susan, is that you have a $50,000 judgment with board order credit for the Escalade. Guess what happens? Now, their property, their judgment that they were trying to, not get, now they have your judgment. They just inherited your judgment. And even if you transfer it back to her, it don't go away. It's now there. So be careful who you quitclaim property to, because it could come and bite you and see what. Okay? Be careful. And by the way, if you're going to do a quitclaim deed, go talk to an attorney. Let them handle it. Bankruptcies, if the property is in bankruptcy or the seller has filed for bankruptcy, we will need to see the bankruptcy document. So if your seller tells you that he has filed for bankruptcy before, get him going to give us the bankruptcy documents because we're going to need to review it to make sure that the property that we're trying to sell was released.
Before you go forward, with the quitclaim deed, I noticed I had someone who bought it from our condo association and have it in stock. I know the title company wouldn't.
It could get a little hairy with the quitclaim deed. They may not have, there's probably something else that went on. The quitclaim deeds are not the proper form. Usually it's a special warranty. In those cases, it's a special warranty because it's a condo association. They'll give you a special warranty.
Where would be the title company wouldn't, when they take over a property that?
There's probably a little bit more to that. Yes, there's more to that. All right. The other thing that a title commitment is going to show is going to show the plat restrictions. Plat restrictions, the condo bylaws. It's going to show everything that stays with the land. This is where the attorneys usually make a big fuss and they stop us and say, please send me all the requirements on Schedule B. Too. That's the time we like to know who the attorney is ahead of time. Now, a lot of realtors, I know I probably said the title commitment to you. And had you ever heard of that word before? The newbies, I forget. But the veterans, did you ever hear the title commitment? Did you ever ask the title agent to supply you with a copy of the title commitment? Please, it is extremely important that you, as a real estate professional, ask to see the title commitment. You're either representing the seller or the buyer. You want to know how to be proactive? Take a look at the title commitment. Because that's going to tell us if our closing is going to be delayed. And you can be very proactive at that point in trying to resolve them. If you're representing a buyer, they're going to get a commitment from the mortgage, from the lender. They're going to give a lender commitment, right? Same thing. We offered you a title commitment. Like that, you see what's going on, and you can help us immediately dissect the transaction and try to get us some help in trying to get the documents done, okay? I have a few people down in Miami that said, we don't want to know about that. What do you mean you don't want to know about that? You want to see what's going on. Because now you can tell your buyer who's packing, who's in Kentucky, who's already making, plans for their move down here, it ain't going to happen when the contract says. Because there's a lot of stuff going on with title. So at least you can, help your buyer not have their moving truck on the way down. If it's going to take 120 days to do the program. Okay? So that's why you really need to take a look at the title commitment. And if you have any questions, because I know you will, when you review that title commitment, give me a call, give me a holler. Better yet, email it to me so at least when you call me, it's in front of me. And I can take a look at it and say, oh yeah, well this is what's going on. Because really, sometimes when you have somebody that's out of the transaction, a neutral party, we actually become very good and very creative at giving somebody another idea on how to resolve something that other company may not have even thought of. Okay? So now we have our title commitment. Now the title company orders all the stuff. Now we start to order payoffs because now we know what open mortgages we have. Remember, we need the Social Security number. Back then, when the property was in foreclosure, when I say back then, I'm saying 5 years ago, when the property was in foreclosure, it would take the attorneys about 14 days to get us a payoff letter. Now, we hardly have that kind of transaction. Now it's mostly a short sale. So now we don't even deal with the David Stearns of the world. We now deal with the loss mitigators. But if the property is not in short sale and it's in foreclosure and you're just trying to save it, the attorneys for the foreclosure case will take about 14 days to give us a payoff letter. So none of this 2-week closing when we're in foreclosure, okay? That doesn't work. We're going to order the judgments and we're going to order lien payoffs. Has anyone ever seen a notice of commencement or been involved where there's a notice of commencement? Yeah, those could be sticky, down the drain. Notice of commencements. If, let's say, that Teresita, I'm picking her name. Let's say Teresita has a property and she needs to put a new roof on. So she proceeds to put a new roof, and her roofer files what is called a notice of commencement. He does that to tell the public that, hey, I'm putting a new roof on her house, and I am going to be due some money. Okay. In the midst of all this, Teresita, 6 months later, the roofer does his job. Teresita pays the roofer, and the roofer goes on his merry way and actually closes down the company. I hate when kids come. So Teresita is selling the house now to Susie. And we do the title work, and this notice of commencement shows up now. And we go back to Teresita and say, Teresita, you have a notice of commencement from your roofer that is open. And in order to close, do the closing, we must have the release from the roofer, the notice of termination. Okay, very good. So Teresita calls the roofer and phones are disconnected. Can't get a hold of my roofer. Houston, we have a problem. Because that's an open lien. We must clear that notice of commencement. We have to, it's an open lien. So we have to get a hold of the roofer. We have to go into sunbids.org. We have to find who he is, where he is. We have to do all sorts of due diligence.
They only last for a year?
Yes. They're only good for 1 year. The notice of commencement is not refiled. It's only good for 1 year. But we're 6 months into this. So we still got 6 months. Guess what? If we can't find the roofer, you know what we got to do? We got to hold back the money. Not good. Painful. Notice of commencement on condominiums. Okay, this happens quite a bit. If there's a notice of commencement on a condominium, and it's for usually common elements, we usually go to the president of the association, and they must sign an affidavit that says that the association has sufficient dollars to pay the contractors. Believe me, they will not sign it unless they have the money. Unfortunately, fast forward to today's short sale times, a lot of these condominiums don't have the money, so it can become a problem. So the only way to go around it is to actually hold back the money from the unit holder, and we prorate it. We prorate it based on units. We hold back, it was 15 units, we hold back 15% of the lien, but the contractor has to be willing to release our property. It gets complicated. Okay? So beware of these notice of commencements. They could become a problem for you. Federal tax liens. Federal tax liens are good for 10 years. Actually, I just read something that came through in one of my wire updates that said that the government may not be filing federal tax liens anymore. So keep tuned to that. They may not be filing it on their homes. So,
Should they be for 10 years?
yeah, they're good for 10 years, and they have to be refiled. Okay. A federal tax lien against Teresita and not her husband still encumbers the property. Okay? It's not like a judgment. It will still encumber the property. So it has to be paid off at closing.
That's only talking about a homestead property.
It don't matter. Federal tax liens, homesteaded, it's not exempt. It takes priority.
It's an investment property, and it's only titled in the same part of the husband's name. The lien is against the woman. It still encumbers the husband's property because it's a joint community property.
Yes. A federal tax lien against one of the title owners will encumber the property regardless if it's investment or homestead.
Only one's on the back.
Yes. It will. Well, no. Even if if the two of them are not on title, let's say it's against Teresita, but the title holder is Rolando. Okay. As long as Teresita never held title during the time that the federal tax lien got filed, then we don't have to worry.
Okay, because there's a lot of investment properties where one spouse will buy and that spouse will be the only one on title.
That's good.
It's not a problem.
As long as that person never took title, we're not going to worry. Or during the term of title. Municipal lien searches. Okay, here's where it gets really funky for you realtors. Okay? There is one thing, well, there's a lot of things that title insurance doesn't cover, but one of those things happens to be open permits. We don't cover open permits. So, when we do our municipal lien search, it's going to show us open permits, code violations, open taxes, and open water and utility bills that may become a lien. Let me talk about open permits first. This is big, okay? Because as a buyer's agent, you need to know that there's an open permit on the air conditioner, the new central AC. The permit never got closed. And you don't want to do the closing and your buyer come back to you 6 months later and say, hey, I got a knock on the door from the city saying that they're imposing penalties because the permit was never closed on the air conditioner. This is not the time for this to happen. It happens before closing. Okay? I know that you all, when you're taking a listing, you have a seller's disclosure. Right? This may be the right time to ask them if there's been any work done for which they received a permit from the bank, from the city, and it's never been closed. You might want to have your seller go in and not wait till the title search is being done and we find this open permit. And remember, open permits are not covered by title insurance, so it's not our responsibility. But the municipal lien search will show this. As realtors, be proactive and ask the title company to send you a copy of the lien search, the municipal lien search, because you're entitled to see it. You're part of the transaction. And now you can be proactive and say, hey, we have this open permit issue. Code violations not in the public records. There are certain code violations that will not hit the public records. And they can later become a lien on the property. While I'm talking about it, let's talk about code violations for a moment. Let's talk about code violations. Okay. Code violation. Let's say Susie has an investment property in Lake Worth. And she's owned this investment property for 5 years. She also owns a property in Boca Raton, which is her primary residence. And now she is going to sell her house in Boca. And when we do our title search, our title commitment reveals a code violation on her property in Lake Worth from 5 years ago. And the reason was that the tenant did not mow the grass, and the grass was yay high. So the city filed a code violation against her property. Susie doesn't know anything about this code violation. This is news to her. And she's saying, why? Oh, why? If I'm selling this property in Boca, are you picking up this code violation in my property in Lake Worth? How does this affect? How does this relate? State law. Florida has a state law that says that any code violation in the same county will have a lien encumbrance on any property she owns in that same county. So if you have 5 other properties, Susie, it's going to follow you. All these properties are going to come and have this code violation against this property in Lake Worth. Here's where it gets really interesting. The code violation said that until this code violation gets released, there will be a penalty imposed of $50 a day. Let's do the math. $50 a day times 365 days times 5 years. That's a huge code violation, huh? Well, Susie, I got news for you. You've got to go back to City Hall and be really proactive and say, I didn't know about this, and I'm selling my house in Boca right now, and I need to get this released. And the problem was corrected. It's just, I had tenants in there, I went in there, I mowed the grass, and got taken care of. So the city's going to say, okay, slap on the hands, give me $500. I'm being facetious, but it kind of works out that way. But it's $500 you didn't know you had to dish out from the sale of your house in Boca. So this happens, and a lot of people think I'm crazy when I say, hey, Susie, you have a lien on your house from your property in Lake Forest, and you're going to say, you're crazy. No, state law. So let's be careful about code violations. Open taxes, that's a no-brainer. There's open taxes, they have to be paid off. Open water utility bills. Water and sewer is one of those utilities that can become a lien on the property. That's how come you'll see title companies doing escrow holdbacks for water and sewer. That's why. Because until we get a clean bill of health, a clean, clear, paid off utility bill, it can become a lien. FPL, the phone company, the cable company, we don't care about those. We care about water and sewer. And that's what the municipal lien search will reveal. What is a typical code violation? Dirty pools. A dirty pool, you can get a code violation for a dirty pool. Your pool has frogs in it. It's so green. It got lily ponds in it. Vehicles in the yard, unmown lawn, broken windows, vegetation, trash or debris, noise complaints. Oh, I love that one. Barking dog. We had a closing, there was a barking dog code violation. $50 a day, 365 days times 5 years for a barking dog. We had to take care of it. The survey. If the property is being financed, the lender will automatically require a survey. And by the way, we don't do surveys on condos, only on lot. So the bank will require a survey. If it's a cash buyer, most of my realtors say, oh, they don't need a survey. Yes, they do. They need a survey. The survey will reveal certain things to them. One, it'll show the easements and the setback lines. It'll show fence encroachments. It'll show pool encroachments. Utility sheds. It can get ugly. I always say, who owns the fence anyway? Because the survey might reveal that the fence, the property that you're selling, Susie, the property you're selling, the fence encroaches 5 feet into your property. You actually have 5 more feet of property. That's a lot of property. Who owns the fence? Your neighbor or you? It don't matter. The fence can be moved back because you own 5 more feet of land. How do surveyors work? You ever seen that in the middle of the street?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what a survey does. When property gets platted, brand new property is being platted. Let's say we have raw land and the foundations are being put in. What they do is they put stakes. If the plat is going to be 90 feet by 125 feet lots, the surveyors will put stakes at the beginning and at the end of the property. And when you order a survey, they're going to go out there and find those stakes in the metal detector, and they're going to put those little, you've seen those little red, orange flags at the beginning of the property, the end of the property, and then there's a bunch of other little flags, because those are delineating the easements. Okay? Well, I'll tell you about the easements in the property, only because I have personal knowledge of this. I had a builder, I don't know where I was involved with, but I had a builder build a pool wall into the easement, the utility easement. Not good. Not good because if the utility company in the future has to excavate, for whatever reason, they have to knock down that pool wall. And your buyer is not going to be a happy camper. And the reason why I say that, easements are a big issue is because one of my first properties that I bought, and I had little children, I wanted to buy a pool. I wanted to buy a house where I could put a pool in the backyard. Well, I haven't found a property that abutted a main road. It was an expressway. And it had these big walls. So I didn't hear the noise, so I thought it was great. And it was a huge piece of land. I said, okay, right, this is the property I want to buy, and I want to put a pool here, and I want to put the cheeky hut there, and all sorts of, beautiful dreams were coming together. Well, when I was financing the property, when I got the survey, I was very disappointed to find out that I had a 25-foot road right-of-way easement in my backyard. Meaning I could not build anything. No pool. Just, very disappointing. Okay? So that's what a survey will actually reveal. The easements. I also had another builder, believe it or not, that built part of the room, the third bedroom. The wall was going 2 feet into the easement. That was crazy. I don't know how the city allowed him to build that house. But they built it, and that caused a huge delay because we had to go to the city, to all the utility companies, and ask for waivers. So this is what a survey will show. Right now, we have a $600,000 closing that has survey issues. Huge survey issues. Because the property is actually built, believe it or not, into the road. A road used to exist there. It no longer exists. But the road right away is there. And the property is built on it. So that's a huge problem that can get under. So be careful. I would always suggest that even if it's a cash deal, that your buyer get a survey. The survey, again, if it's being financed, we must do that. As realtors, if it's a gated community, be proactive with us. Let us know it's a gated community. Give us the code. Give us access. Tell us what it is, because when we order the surveyor to go out there, guess what the surveyor is going to have to do? He's going to have to go through the front gate. And we don't want our surveyor to call us and say, hey, Maria, how the heck do we get in here? And we need the survey today. Because the lender's asking for it, because the closing is next week. And they need the survey now. Okay? So let's be proactive. Ooh, condos. Oh, yeah. Ooh. All I have to do is pull that one out and there's oohs. Sides, condos, HOAs. Yeah, I don't like them either. We have to order an estoppel letter. The estoppel letter will tell us a lot of stuff that we need to know. Number one, how much is being paid for maintenance? Is it quarterly, annually, semi-annually? What is it? Are they up to date? Is there any other association? Are there assigned parking spaces? Is there an assessment? Is there an assessment coming? Is there assessment already in play? It'll give us all this information. And by the way, in short sales, the seller by contract is obligated to produce the estoppel letter. A lot of realtors say to me, oh, but you told me that the seller doesn't have to pay you any money up front. Yay. They don't have to pay me my fees up front. And there are estoppel letters that have to be produced. And these estoppel letters can be very expensive. They're usually about $150 a shot. And if there's 3 associations, like we have a lot of up here, that's a lot of money. So in a short sale, be proactive with your sellers. They're going to have to come up with some money. In a regular transaction, be proactive with your seller. They're going to have to pay for this up front. Okay? Title companies and lawyers were just not doing this anymore because it's cost prohibitive at this point for us. And we never know if the closing is going to come to closing or not. So we're just not doing it. So this is one thing you have to prepare your sellers. They're gonna, and some associations will accept credit cards. Condo approval. I know that your contracts say, just like it says that the buyer will make application for financing within 5 days, right? It also says that your buyer will make application for condo approval within X amount of days. I believe it's 5 days too. Do not wait till the last moment to do this. Number one, if your buyer did not make application within the dates allowed on your contract, I believe he's now in default. A lot of new realtors don't understand that this is your role. If it's your buyer, take them by the hand, get them to the association, get them to fill out the application, and get the ball rolling. As a listing agent, it's your role to make sure that the transaction happens smoothly. Contact the buyer's agent and say, has your buyer made application? If not, let's take it to the association together. And there are some associations where the president is about 90 years old or 95 years old, and he meets once a month, and you are not going to make him meet a prospective new buyer anytime but when he says that one time a month happens to occur. This will hold up your transaction. So be very proactive with regards to the condo association. Additional association, let's talk about this. Because this has happened to us. Our estoppel letter request says, Mr. and Mrs. Property Management Company, we need to know if there is another association. And they say no. And we rely on them. And we close. And 3 months later after the closing, we get another association calling your buyer saying, you owe $500. Where the heck did you come from? So when we look at our estoppel letters and it says, look, the association you told us said there was no other association. Happens. Guess what? Tough cookie. It's still a lien. So when you're taking a listing as a listing agent, make sure you ask your seller in detail, how many associations are there involved with this property? How much do you pay each association? One, I believe on the MLS, you have to disclose it, and you have to disclose it correctly. And your buyer can actually walk away from the transaction if it's incorrect. So be careful.
How is it possible that there could be more than one association?
I'll tell you a good one. Woodfield Country Club. I used to live there.
Central Village.
I had a homeowners association for my little development. I had a master association, and then I had the country club.
What is the master code?
The master covers, whatever, they're all different. They all handle different things. But there could be 3 associations involved, or 2. But just be very proactive and ask your sellers when you're taking that listing, okay? And by the way, they know. If they're making the payments, they know. If they're not making the payments, they're getting letters in the mail, okay? All right. Approval of your buyer. Some people think, well, they're not going to disapprove my buyer. He's the perfect buyer. How do you know? People can be disapproved for condominium or homeowners association approval because they have a criminal record, because they do background checks on them. Bad credit. I've had people approved for their mortgage and disapproved by the association because the association felt that they just did not have enough money. They did not make enough money to pay the mortgage and also pay for the HOA fees. Who are they? They're the condo association. And they actually have the right to do this. Too many people occupying the unit. Well, that happens in Miami. And that's just to name a few. So immediately start condo and HOA approval process. Then we coordinate with the lender. Okay, once everything is in, the lender now comes into play, and the lender is going to ask us for our title commitment. Guess what? They also want to take a look at that. They're going to ask us for a 24-month chain of title. Why? Because they want to see how many times in the last 24 months title has changed. And because they hold the golden egg, so they can. Closing protection letter from our underwriters. They're going to ask for the survey. They're going to ask for the hazard and flood insurances and our wire instructions. So we produce all that and send it over to the lender. So now we're communicating. And guess what? It's time to close. Everything is finally coming to play. So now we get the clear to close from the lender. So now our payoffs are in and updated. And by the way, any payoff that we ordered 15 days ago, we have to update it because things happen. Forced place insurance could be an issue because the seller did not pay for their insurance and they paid on their own. The taxes, they could have paid it and it wasn't included in their escrows. All sorts of, bounce check. I've had that. The seller, because they know that they were closing, they sent in their last payment, NSF, and it comes back. Smart sellers. But our payoff letter 15 days ago reflects their payment. Now their check bounces, now we update it, now the payoff's higher. Interesting how this happened, huh? Monster, my dragons. Okay. Now we prepare our seller's documents. They're in the file. Remember, we had mail-aways. We have to have that all in our files. Our title search is updated again. You ever been at closing and all of a sudden everything was clean on title, and all of a sudden the title company calls you and says, Houston, we have a problem. We have a judgment just showing up now. That's because the title commitment, the public records are 10 days behind. Even in today's day of technology, they're 10 days behind. So when we update our title right before closing, we're still 10 days behind, but now other things have shown up. And now we have a judgment to contend with, or a lien, or whatever shows up. So we now update our title. The survey is in and reviewed. We've reviewed it. You've reviewed it. You as a buyer's agent have asked us for it, and you've given it to your buyer to review. The insurances are in. The mortgage package is received. And our HUD-1 is now starting to be prepared. And let's talk about us preparing our HUD-1. All right. Hopefully by now you've given us all the information that we needed to know about your end of the transaction. Repairs, your commission, etc. We now sit down and prepare our HUD-1 based on the lender's closing instructions that come in when? An hour before closing, of course. Okay? We now prepare our closing, our HUD-1. And you're anxious as the buyer's agent to get the cash to close for your buyer. But we are not giving it to you. We're holding it back. Why? Because we can't. Because we have to go through a few steps before we can release figures to you. The first thing we do, if there is a mortgage broker involved, we send it to the mortgage broker. Why? Because he put the deal together. So he, more than anyone, understands the financing involved. So we show it to him, and he approves it. Then we send it to the lender for the lender's approval. But the lender might say, oh, no. No. That's wrong. So they send it back to us. We make a correction. We send it again to the mortgage broker. And now the mortgage broker says, oh, no. That's not right. They forgot our yield spread payment. And that doesn't happen that much anymore because of the new GFP law. But they forgot to pay us something. Okay, now we've got 2 hours vested in this, okay? We're going back and forth. So now we finally get it approved by the mortgage broker and approved by the lender. Now we release it to you, the realtors, and the attorneys. And the attorney says, oh no, you forgot to put my fee in it. Okay, take it back one more time, put the fee in it. And now you say, oh, by the way, you forgot about this credit. Credit? Now? You tell me about a credit? Yeah, we forgot to tell you about a credit for a roof problem. Guess what? We now have to go back to the mortgage broker, to the lender, to get this approved, this credit approved. We're now 3 or 4 hours into this, okay? Because even though we're all on email, someone may have decided to go to lunch in all of this. So now, finally, after 4 or 5 hours of trying to go back and forth on the HUD-1, we finally have a HUD-1 that everyone agrees to. And guess what? In my office, we no longer accept cashier's checks. We now request wired funds and wired funds only from the buyer. Why? 2 reasons. Cashier's checks do not clear right away. And they take 24 hours to clear. And there's been so much fraud with fraudulent cashier's checks that our underwriters are sending us underwriting alerts every day. Do not accept cashier's check from Community Federal Bank of Boca Raton. Well, there's an alert of fraudulent cashier's checks. Do not accept cashier's checks from the book. So we said, forget about this. We're just not going to deal with this anymore. Send us a wire. Okay? And wires occur immediately. I mean, within an hour, we have the wire. And it's cleared funds. We're not the only title company now requesting this. We'll have most major title companies requesting wire transfers. So prepare your buyers to be ready to go to the bank and do the wire transfer. Okay? Remember the story I told you about the gentleman that came to the closing table with his girlfriend? Okay. Proper ID will be required. I don't know any reputable title company that will not ask for passport or for the driver's license or a valid driver's license. And they best not be expired. They best be current. Okay? And they should look like the people on the picture. Closing venue. Now we set the closing venue. Your place, my place, where are we going? It don't matter to us. We'll go to your office. But we have to have a fax machine and a copy. Why? Because when everything is said and done, we need to do what is called funding the loan. Funding the transaction. Way back, a long time ago, when I started in this business, there was no such thing as a funding number. I mean, you close, you got the bank draft from the bank, and you close, and you fund it immediately. Now, about 10 years ago, the banks decided that they wanted the title companies to send them about a packet yay big by fax at the closing table before they would fund the loan, allow us to use the money that they put in our escrow account to fund the loan. So usually we have to send them a copy of the executed note, the mortgage, HUD-1, and several other documents that they may be required. And guess what? We're all there sitting at this beautiful conference table. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday afternoon. Yeah. And the closer is in California. And she has gone to lunch. We cannot get a funding number. We're all looking at each other like, well, Maria, can you fund the loan? No, I can't give you the money. I can't give you this other money because my instructions, I have to follow my instructions. I can't fund it. So we're all looking at each other going, no. Well, guess what? We're just going to sit there until we get a funding number. And let's say something happens. Like everything, something happens. And they decide to do a quality control on the file while we're sitting at the closing table. And guess who had their moving truck in the driveway? The buyer, ready to move in the new house. No tiki, no laundry. No tiki, no laundry. No can do. No keys. we will have to wait it out until the bank decides to give us that funding number because they hold the golden egg. And add the equation to a short sale to this, and it's major havoc. Because not only are we waiting for funding numbers from our lenders, but we're also waiting for the final approval of the HUD-1 from the loss mitigators. So it can become havoc. No tiki, no longer. So now, just prepare your buyers and sellers. Please prepare your buyers and sellers to understand that we're going to the closing table, that nothing is set in concrete until it happens, until the funding is approved. On a cash deal, I'm not so concerned because obviously we already have the approval from the short sale lender. Cash deal, we're not going to be worried about this. But when you're dealing with a lender on the buyer's end, we got to deal with them. Once we get the funding number, we now send the seller by wire his proceeds, if it's not a short sale. Okay. We now issue a wire. We call our office and say, hey, send that $300,000 wire over to Mr. Smith's account. And boom, we give you your checks and we fund the loan. Let me tell you about wires, because we've had this happen to us. After 9/11, there was a law that was set into place called the Patriot Act. And this Patriot Act has a lot of names in it of people that are under surveillance by the U.S. government. And anytime there's any money or anyone involved that has the name Rafael Sanchez, we have a problem getting him his wire. Why? Because it's happened to us about 5 times. And there are other names. I'm just picking on Rafael. And we don't know this until Rafael calls us 2 days later and say, you took my money. You haven't sent me my money. What are you talking about? We sent the wire immediately at the closing table. We call our bank and they say, oh, yeah, the Fed, they're not releasing the funds. Why not? Because he's in the Patriot Terrorist Act. He's in the list. Rafael Sanchez. You know how many Rafael Sanchez's there are in this world? So what do we have to do? Now we have to be very specific, and we have to provide Rafael's Social Security number to the U.S. Treasury. Wire transfers work this way. It does not go from bank to bank. It goes from my SunTrust bank account to the U.S. Treasury, to the Fed. They hold it, they massage it, they probably make interest on it for a few minutes. They do whatever they do, and then they send it over to Bank of America. And sometimes, if you're closing at the end of the month, it might be a little delay because a little bit of traffic. There's traffic involved. So our closings might be a little bit delayed. Being proactive as a title agent, I would try not to schedule my closings at the end of the month. I would definitely try to do it the week before, if at all possible. And please avoid a 3 o'clock Friday afternoon closing at all costs. Because you may not fund the loan. Your buyers will be ticked off at you because they planned on moving in and the workers were there to start painting the house. And now you've delayed it. So my suggestion is try to do a morning closing, if at all possible, and try to make it early in the week. Okay? Get it out of the way. Early in the week. That's my suggestion. We now fund the loan. Now what happens? Just so that you know what happens in the back office. Once the closing takes place, the final disbursements are made. Title companies, if we receive $599,999.99 in funds that are in our escrow account, we must pay out $599.999.99 by the end of everything, and our files have to be on 0 at some point. Usually, we need it. because we are audited by our auditors, by our underwriters. So we have to prove that we did not take anything that didn't belong to us. We now fund the payoffs, and if it's a payoff, our office wires the funds. We don't even send it by snail mail anymore or FedEx. We wire funds directly onto the lenders. We pay off the condo, the lien, the judgments, and now we record the documents in the courthouse as soon as possible to avoid what is called a gap title issue. By the way, a lot of counties are already online. That title companies, all we do is scan the documents. We have an account called a Simplifier account where we transfer the reporting dues in there, and immediately from our desk we have filed the documents in the courthouse. That's how immediate it is nowadays, which is great. This avoids a lot of gap title issues. So what is gap title? Remember I told you that we had to update title a second time before closing? Well, after our documents are recorded, we do another title search. And if anything happened between the last title search and this title search and shows up on title, it is now what is called gap coverage. Our underwriters will cover the gap. Anything that occurs during that time will be covered by our underwriters. If the seller did something, they will sue the seller. We will pursue the seller, but your buyer will get owner's title insurance. But that's what gap coverage is all about. I have a lot of realtors telling me, if my buyers are buying cash, do they need owner's and title insurance? Absolutely. I would not recommend that any purchases be made without an owner's title insurance policy. That's one of the biggest investments you make. Yes, ma'am.
Federal health insurance has gap, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have it? What's that?
Yes. That's why you have title insurance. That's why you have title insurance. It covers the gap. Because we can't guarantee that the seller didn't go. I'll tell you that happened to me. It happened to us about 10 years ago. The seller, he didn't do it maliciously. Okay. What happened was the seller got a bridge loan. We did our final title search before the closing, and the bridge loan got recorded. We didn't know he had done a bridge loan to buy another property. So we close, we fund to the seller. We do our title search after our recording. We do our title search like 15 days later, and we freak out. This man put a $300,000 mortgage on the property that we didn't know about during the time of the gap. Now, he didn't do it maliciously. He just didn't know the consequences. We had to sue him. We had to sue him because that bridge loan he had signed an affidavit of closing that there was nothing else being encumbered on title that would make a lien on the new property. He just put a $300,000 loan on the buyer's property. That's what's called covering the gap. The underwriter sued him. He finally got the loan on his new home, and everything was taken care of. But that's what gap covers. Okay? We recertify title policy. We have to, by law, send your owner, your buyer, their title policy within 30 days. It's state law. So we now go back and record. We send them their title policy. And remember that final satisfaction of judgment? Remember that problem that we were having about that unrecorded, that open mortgage that was sitting out there? Now the bank sends us the satisfaction of mortgage, and we record that satisfaction of mortgage so that your buyer will not have a problem in the future with open mortgages. Our file is audited, scanned, and sent to the warehouse. Short sales. Remember Rubik's Cube? Anybody ever play with a Rubik's Cube? I was really bad at that. That's what short sales are. It's a Rubik's Cube. Because just when you think you have it all done, something happens and totally all the pieces fall out of place, and you've got to start all over again, playing with your puzzle to try to make it fit again. The short sale is no different than a regular transaction. You have to give clean title to your buyer. Period. That's all it is. The only thing is, we have so many variables to deal with in the short sale. We deal with loss mitigators. We deal with judgment holders. We have to deal with the buyers. We have to deal with the buyer's lender. We have to deal with MI companies. We have to deal with second mortgage companies. We have to deal with a bunch of stuff, okay? So if one of them doesn't fall into place, we can't close. Everything has to fall into place completely. I understand only because I was at a seminar in Miami last Tuesday that Fannie Mae has become very, very proactive in trying to help realtors and title companies in escalating the title deed issues with the short sales through Fannie Mae. I'm going to have a meeting with your board because I know the board in Miami already has some kind of arrangement with Fannie Mae. But basically, you can contact Fannie Mae as a realtor as long as your packages are ready with the servicer and you have their specific borrower's authorization. You can speak to Fannie Mae, give them the case number, give them everything, call them, and within 2 weeks, they will try to find a resolution to your short sale issues. But you, the realtor, has to make the initial call. They're even negotiating the second lien holders. They're calling the second lien holders and trying to bring them to their knees so that the short sales will happen. They're happening a lot now. We don't have any problem getting short sales approved. The problem is getting them to the closing table. That's where the problem is. Okay. So the short sales, just a lot of pieces of the puzzle. Teamwork will ensure a smooth closing for you. And many more referrals to come. Any questions?
Yeah, actually, I have a few short questions. If you have two buyers and two sellers, and they're all in different parts of the world or country, and is it an executed contract if you have 4 different contracts coming in, identical contracts, each with a separate signature? Is that okay?
I don't think the contract is a problem at all. I don't know.
So it doesn't, you don't need the same piece of paper that all 4?
No.
Is the survey sometimes in public record or rarely?
No. Surveys are not in public records.
Or rarely? Clearing code violations beforehand when it's foreclosure, that's always a trick because sometimes you're looking at buying foreclosure and there's $30,000 for an unmowed lawn, right? And you call the city and you say, hey, what's really going to be the liability? And they say, well, you have no standing because you're not the owner. And the owner's, in order to be found, they need to be a foreclosure, otherwise they miss sometimes. So, is there anything you can do there or nothing, right? Just,
I would be proactive if I'm representing, this is my own opinion, okay? If I'm representing a buyer or I'm buying myself an REO property, those addendums are so tricky.
yeah.
I don't feel even qualified for myself, even paralegal, to even sign them. I would definitely hire an attorney that would, you can have an arrangement with an attorney that's just going to look at the contract and say yay, no, and go. And they can charge you $750 or something. There are some attorneys that will do that. I would definitely hire, have a relationship with an attorney that will handle all your REOs. And yes, always insist that the title agent that's handling the REO closing, that they provide you with the lien search. Most of these are as-is contracts anyway.
Right.
But at least your buyer knows what he's getting into. There's open permits if there are code violations. There are some code violations that the lender has to fix. Okay, but like open permits and stuff like that, they don't have to. So be very proactive there.
Okay. I'm taking your commissions to the title company. in another seminar, there was a lawyer here who's Bob Ropsey, and he said, you know, he often, on the commercial transactions especially, since on the MLS, your protection is a little better because MLS listed. But when you're dealing with other stuff that's commercial, it's not necessarily MLS listed. He says he sends a notice to the title company that says, hey, here's the contract, here's this, here's that. You're supposed to be paid $40,000 for this deal. You know, you're on notice. So that you as a title company now, when you go to closing, you have to either pay that out or you have to address that issue. You can't just ignore my notice. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Anytime we get constructive notice of anything, we have to act on it. We cannot turn our back to it because we can get sued. So, in commercial transactions is a little bit different than the residential transactions, but I have had, we have had agents that they felt that their contracts were being sidetracked, and they have said to us, you know, I understand that this is happening. I am due a commission on this file, and we've had constructive notice and said, okay, no, we need to deal with this.
Okay, excellent. On another issue,
You can sue us. You can sue us if we
right.
don't. That's how come I say it's so important that emails be delivered.
Are emails not constructive notice, or does it have to be?
Emails, yeah, constructive notice. Yeah, and something like that, I would have a return receipt.
Right.
And I would have them confirm.
Right.
I would have the title company confirm that they received your email.
Okay. What is you mentioned the closing protection letter from the underwriter. What exactly is that?
Closing protection letter is to the lender that we are held by the standards, and we will adhere to all their guidelines. We will adhere to the closing instructions that the lender sends us. It's an added protection for the lenders, and usually only the lenders request that.
Okay. Does your firm do pencil searches?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Well, afterwards I'll ask you about that. Two people are on title that's that. Only one goes on the note. But both have to go on the mortgage, is that correct?
Yeah. It depends.
Okay, so you need to elaborate on that. Okay. Is a general POA similar to a limited POA? I'm sorry, because you distinguish the general POA and the durable POA. Power of attorney, right? And the durable was basically covering the whole transaction as long as you specify the witness and had another action.
I believe the durable is probably the same as the limited.
The durable is more like a limited, right? Okay.
Yeah, because it's limited only to that transaction.
Right.
And the general is very specific.
Okay.
But going back to your question on the note and the mortgage,
Yeah.
the reason I say it depends, because it depends on the transaction. Okay. For example, if it's a man and wife, and only the husband is going to sign the note, because they are married, the wife has to sign off on the mortgage. She has to sign off on basically her homestead rights on the mortgage. If, let's say, two individuals are purchasing the property, let's brother and sister, John and Sheila Jones, and we're using John's credit, but Sheila is also buying the property. Well, John will sign the note, but Sheila and John will sign the mortgage. Yeah. Anyone that's on title will have to sign the mortgage, not necessarily the note.
Okay. And then another issue of a constructive notice. Sometimes you go to contract. You think your seller, I have this when I first started investing, the seller started to play a little game. So he looked at the way to finagle out. And ultimately he was successful in finagling out. It was just...
The seller?
The seller did. This was back when probably a good ride. And so he was told, he pulled some BS. And I learned later that what I could have done was, it's almost like filing the executed agreement, but it's not. It's called a memo of understanding, where you can get the seller to sign it, both of and file that with the courthouse. And in effect, it sort of clouds the title, whereas if he tries to pull out, he's got to get that removed, right? He's got to deal with it. He can't just
It's
say,
like a lien.
like a lien.
It's a notice, it's constructive notice that they have a vested interest, they could have a vested interest in the property.
So the memo of understanding being the next thing to get to sign in the investment deal, especially at the same time. Why don't you just file the contract in the public record?
You have to be very careful Because if you start filing stuff and it's done maliciously or
No, not
just a whole
maliciously.
left child, you can get sued for that too.
Yeah.
I don't know on a commercial contract. I know that they do not record unless they think that something's happening and,
Right.
and they're going to protect their interest.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Can I give you some insights on short sales? How many of you are doing short sales? As a listing agent? One of the workshops I do is called Successful Short Sale Strategies. And I told you that we don't have problems at all approving the short sales. We get them approved. The problem is getting them to the closing table. And the challenges that I'm seeing is that when the listing agents meet with the seller at the kitchen table after listing, either they don't understand the process or they don't understand the challenges that will be coming down the line. The loss mitigators and the lenders have become very astute as to figuring out whether or not your seller has money. Okay? If your seller is making his credit card payments, but he's not paying his mortgage, he has money. And they're pulling credit reports and they're looking at this. So it's not unusual now for the lender to come back and say, well, we want a contribution from your seller. So one of those conversations you need to have with your seller is, be very careful what you're doing with your money, because you may be asked to do a contribution, or the lender may ask for a note, a personal note. As long as your seller understands that and has had ample time to maybe talk to his attorney or understand the financial ramifications, it won't come as a surprise to him when the short sale is approved and the approval letter comes in with this. Now your seller's had ample time to weigh his options. And his options will probably be to go to the closing table. But let's not surprise him at that point. Okay? The other thing is, I shy away from short sales. And as a realtor, I would shy away from a short sale where there's a divorce involved. Because one of the things that I adhere to is to list or not to list. That is the first one. Because I don't want you going out there just getting a listing just to get the listing. Because in a divorce situation, you have to ask a very, the most important question is, who signed the note? Because if only one spouse signed the note, and the spouse that did not sign the note is living in the property, you have a very uncooperative seller. Case in point. So the sellers are husband and wife, they get divorced or got divorced. The husband signed the note. Wife stays in the property with the minor child. Who's on the hook? Not the wife. The husband. The wife moves in her boyfriend in the house. She's saying, I'm not going to show the property because I can live here for free for 2 years. And she's going to live there for free for 2 years. She don't care. It's his problem. It's not hers. So if you've got that listing, you have zero. I wouldn't take it. Another problem that we have had is, remember when the days of I'm going to purchase the property and my credit is not good. So Teresita, who's my sister or my aunt, has great credit. So she's going to be the one who signs for the note. And then 3 months later, my aunt Teresita does a quick claim deed and gives me the property. Okay, now I am the legal title holder for this property. Unbeknownst to you as the realtor, as you pull title, I'm the title holder, right? But who contacted you was not me. It's my Aunt Teresita, because she's on the note. It's her problem, it's not mine. And if me and my Aunt Teresita have had a fallout in our family relationships, I'm not showing the property. Because I can live there for 2 years for free. You don't want that listing. Because you have an uncooperative seller. So be careful with those things. I mean, I'll talk to the people here and do a successful short sale strategies at the workshop for you. And a lot is happening right now. You know that there's a new disclosure. It's the MARS disclosures. The way you advertise, you have to have this verbiage that you're not, you're not with the government, blah, blah, blah. So when you start advertising and when you start doing your short sales, you have to have these disclosures already. $16,000 penalty per violation. That will wipe us out for a few transactions, huh?